All right, welcome everyone. I'm super excited for today's show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today we have a very special guest. It's none other than Raj Joseph, CEO DQLabs on the Ravit Show. The big theme for today's show is data observability without context is useless for business. So we'll be asking Raj a lot of questions around it, and definitely will not be limiting to that. We'll also be asking a lot of questions around data quality, data teams, data observability, and everything data. So feel free to jump in and ask questions that you might have for Raj. What we are also doing is a very cool giveaway, and thanks to DQLabs for doing a very cool giveaway, which is an a watch, an iWatch. So you guys can actually type in, like, I put it in the comments as well. I've also put it in the ticker below. What you can do is type in hashtag DQLabs in the chat, and you'll enter the raffle. But we also have the registration. I see Sanjeev already out there doing it, so that's very cool. But we'll also be picking up the winners and announcing it through our newsletter. So stay tuned for that. But without any further ado, I think it's time for us to call our guest, Raj here. Hey Raj, welcome to the Ravit Show. It's such a pleasure to have you. And I was just letting the folks know about our topic of discussion, what we'll be doing, and what type of questions they can ask. But I know for a fact where an expert like you can answer anything and everything about data. But can you just introduce yourself and also let us know where you're joining from, and what are you up to nowadays?
No, I mean, first of all, thanks for the humble introduction and having me at Ravit Show. Quite excited to be here, Ravit. I'm traveling. I'm sitting in a hotel room and then taking this call. But
Awesome.
always a pleasure to talk anything about data and in particular about observability and quality. Uh, just as an introduction to the people who don't know much, started my career as an engineer and moved eventually into product leader. Have
Mm,
built bigger data platforms at larger companies as Axiom, and have also started previously founded a company in the data analytics space. And so this is my second venture, and we had an opportunity with a particular client who had a problem in the space of data quality, and then we started piloting with them, and then doing proof of concepts and evolving a solution which we thought was better as a product.
mm.
And that's how we started this company in 2020, DQLabs. So we have been at this for the last 2 years, and it have been exciting than any time before in my life. So thanks for having me.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I think good background about what you've done and how you've come up with the labs. But before I get into obviously understanding your view on data observability, about data quality, uh, what made you come up with the idea to come up, like, to come up with something like data observability? What was the first instinct that, okay, I want to do something in the data observability space?
Yeah, I've been always in the data space. Like even my
Right.
first job was looking into tool sets like Erwin, data modeling tools, or Informatica and things like that of sort. And so any job which I go inadvertently had some piece of quality in it. So, for example, we would be like building an application, and then we found out that after building the application, that would be having feeding the data into some reporting systems, but
Right.
based on how the application was created and the criteria was not necessarily well in alignment with the business, so there was some quality challenges. So fast forward in different layers on the business side as well, I saw that. So
Hmm.
when it came to this problem, the last 20 years, irrespective of what role I was, quality has been a challenge in one way or the other way. And then when it came to like actually this product idea and conception of concepts around data observability and quality, we were
Hmm.
doing lots of modern data stack applications. And if you see the whole modern data stack, I think it's primarily centered around the idea of speed, scalability, and accessibility.
Right.
And most of the technologies and tool sets which was there does not address this problem of speed and performance. So you can do some of those things as what manually possible,
Right.
which was done in the last 2 decades. But trying to do that more automated, more in alignment with speed and performance was a challenge. You need some kind of automated way to look into the data and identify issues, especially unknown issues, which is where some
Exactly.
of the principles of observability comes in. So the idea was fascinating, and taking the concept of software observability and applying to the data also had a lot of merit into it. And combining that with some of the best data quality stewardships and practices
Right.
also had a merit into it. So that's kind of what triggered. If it would be fascinating to solve a problem that has not been solved for decades since the time the data was
Exactly.
born. I mean, so I thought that was cool, and I always had the entrepreneurship bug in me, so it was a natural choice to go build something around this and then see what we can do for the market and the practitioners out there.
And I think definitely with DQLabs, you're doing it very well. I think the messaging that you have for the data community as well. Like I know for a fact, Raj, we've been in touch for years now, and obviously, it gives the data community that confidence that there's obviously a very cool tool that they can look after when they think about data observability, and DQLabs is definitely one of them. But to get more deeper into the discussion, I'm sure the audience here would also love to learn about the current view that you have for the data observability and data quality, and where do you see it moving?
Yeah, I think there's lots of confusions and or different views of what each one of those are. Let me give what my view of data quality and data observability is. Uh, I think observability is, of course, derives from the principles of software observability. And
Hmm.
in particular, when it comes to quality, the application of that, I think the way I connect to that is an automated way of identifying any deviations from known benchmarks. And this is such a critical capability that could be applied when you have large amounts of data, and then
Hmm.
also in particular to identify unknown issues, either at
Right.
data in rest or motion. I mean, that is not practically possible by doing manually. And also when you don't know what is the issue, it's very hard to write specifically to a issue that you don't know what that is there. So,
Exactly.
so that's the way I kind of see observability. The word observe relates as a verb, and
Hmm.
observe any kind of data platforms for any deviation is the way I can do that. So that is a way we can apply data stack layer in terms of quality measurements to know unknown issues. While when it comes to data quality, I think there is a lot of known issues in any organization. I mean, they know that there are certain things that does not align. Example, product names, or even like email IDs, or phone numbers of demographics data, anything of that sort. They
Right.
know that it's a known issue, and then they need something to measure and something to remediate or resolve, and something to govern from a data quality stewardship standpoint. And this is where I think the data quality principles or the best practices of stewardship all comes in to assess any known issues and measure in a periodic way, and then also give the visibility to different functions from a leadership and governance. That's where the whole concept of data quality practices, stewardship all comes into it. I see a lot of merit in each one of those areas and capabilities, and also I see
Right.
lots of conversions that could happen. I think that's where we are kind of looking into this, into more how you can use the strengths of each capabilities but in a meaningful way for the business as a better outcome is where we are focusing as a product too.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Also, you mentioned about great points, and we also have a few questions here coming from LinkedIn, YouTube. We'll definitely picking those up just to let our audience know. But moving on, also, when we talk about data quality, data observability, and looking at it from the business standpoint, there's always a very curious question from the data professionals, that is how businesses approach adopting data quality. So any thoughts there, Raj?
I think the first thing always for me that relates is every organization is unique in the way
Hmm,
they are built.
exactly.
Even though they may use similar data stack and technologies,
Hmm,
the challenges that each organization, even in the same vertical, it could be a company next to each other in doing the same thing, everything selling into the same customers, but still the way they build the applications and serve the customers is little different, and therefore
hmm,
the process and the people brings a lot of different variations to the technologies. So when a business wants to adopt any kind of observability quality aspects of it, I think the first thing I always look into is what size of the company they are, right? I
right.
mean, are they a small organic company, or are they more of an bigger, larger enterprise with lots of organic and inorganic data? And when I say organic and inorganic data, the way I refer it to is organic is any data that is uh, produced and consumed within the enterprise or an organization, while
Right.
inorganic is something that they do not manage and comes from external partners, distributors, systems, and other affiliations of sort, which they do not manage, but at the same time is very critical for their day-to-day operations of sort. I think so. With that two variable, how big they are in terms of the customers, people, employees, and the type of stack they are, and then
Hmm,
also the type of data they have, kind of puts into different buckets of sort. If you have a business which is very organic and which is very controlled and managed,
yeah.
then you may not need all aspects of quality. You may just need very focused, automated, even like more like ideas like shift left and the pipeline aspect of it, very
Exactly.
embedded because it's very standardized. You can very control in all aspects of developments and data engineering. While as you move towards more larger and also in variety of data, organic and inorganic, you cannot necessarily just stick to one of those principles. You have to observe more. You need to govern the data. You need to put some data quality stewardship. You also need to embed some of these capabilities of observability, and then also have checks both at the pipeline layer when the data is at rest and motion, and also data is at rest. So I think that's
Hmm,
where scale comes in. So irrespective of where they are, I always say like believe in the idea of crawl, walk, run rather than trying to conquer the world. Start something
right.
simple. Start with some basic health checks, more from a data reliability, it could be, and then build upon from there as a foundation into more and more higher in terms of what you would do. So that's kind of what I would say.
No, I think definitely those are great insights. That also, you spoke about modern data stack, and also you mentioned about data quality. So I have a question around that, and how important is data quality for modern data driven companies, and how do they go about implementing it? Like, have you seen, like you mentioned, obviously all companies are different in way from each other, but have you particularly seen something extremely different, or how do you see it, how do you see the implementation process?
Yeah, I think quality is important for both modern data-driven companies and also even
Right.
legacy-based any data-driven companies for that matter. And in terms of implementing, I think I think pretty much you also have to look into the organization and then primarily derive value towards any kind of business. So rather
Right.
than my view of it is like anything that you do in terms of technology or implementation needs to add value to the business, right?
Exactly.
If you cannot justify that, if you cannot quantify that, it's very hard to do that or even sustain that process after a certain type of implementation. So I'm assuming that the business cases there well justified for quality. I think the way I would say is you always start with understanding the business data challenges. So this means a collaboration of business plus engineering needs to happen. And in today's world, in especially in the modern data teams, I think majority of the work is done by data engineering. Uh, and
Right.
uh, However, one of the pain points of data engineers is also like they hear like today the data is great and tomorrow the data is bad, and that's primarily because the business is fast, it's moving, and like today it's yesterday it was COVID, today it's economy, tomorrow we don't know what it is, and the
Right.
companies and organizations keeps on changing the strategies to adapt to the customer demands, to the economic climates, all of these variations, and therefore drives and dictates lots of changes on the business expectations of the data.
Exactly.
And then to keep up with that on the data engineering level needs a lot of understanding of the business itself and the context of it, which is very hard for them to do given where they are. Something could be achievable, but not everything to the level of
Hmm.
what the business layer maybe. So I would say like a collaboration of business and engineering needs to happen, and at the rudimentary level, whatever could be done at the health level, the reliability level of the data engineering needs to happen when they are building any kind of database data applications. And then on the next level of collaboration in terms of understanding, is this data fit for business or for fit for purpose, needs that high
Right.
level of collaboration. It could be like data contracts, SLAs, SLEs, things like that, which kind of allows them to collaborate in a meaningful way and then also measure is how I would suggest.
Yeah, I think these are great points, Raj. Also, I know for a fact you mentioned about the strategies, and we also it's time for us to pick a few questions from the audience. We're pretty interesting questions. Great folks joining us today. So let's pick this one since we were on the topic of strategy. You're from YouTube that I see. What are the key components of a successful data observability strategy, and how can businesses develop one? Interesting question.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's lots of keywords there. I think
Yeah.
so. For any data observability strategy, I think you need to first have a buy-in from the whole data engineering team and also the business too, in some sort of way. I think observability as a capability could be applied in way many applications and way many measurements and things. For example, at a table level, you can simply measure volume or any
Hmm.
schema drift. Or even like things like duplicate checks or distribution of data. And if you want, you can go even at the column level in terms of profile distribution and etc. I think so. The capabilities are unlimited, which is
Right.
also very scary because the last thing you want is like trigger on and observe everything in the stack, and then you kind of get lots of alerts, which kind of leads into alert fatigue, and then
Hmm.
usually it will be treated as more like spams versus actually adding any value. So I some of the ways and some of the key components of a successful data observability strategy is like taking and sitting back and then looking into it and see like what measurements are more important for a business, and then defining those and then defining it and starting a little bit on a lower scale in terms of what you want to do, but at the same time automate as much as possible is a place where I would do, because then it just kind of gives you this higher level focus. And
Right.
then once you have an ability to relate with the process and the people, using this automation of observability, then you can develop further more and at scale because you starting to build confidence in the system and the tools and things that you may be using in the
Exactly.
ecosystem.
Okay. Yeah, I think that question kind of obviously with the keywords got a lot of insights out from you, Raj. So thanks for that, and thanks Ravina for asking that question. That obviously talking about data observability, and I know there are a few questions that I need to take from the audience. But before that, I also quickly wanted to jump in something which is hot right now, and since I come from at scale, obviously semantic layer, we've always we've been hearing a lot more and more about it, but also I'm sure the folks joining us today would love to learn more about semantic layer and how we can find that integration with the semantic layer. So if you can tell us more about it, Raj, that would be super interesting.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, like I think a lot of people still don't talk much about semantic layer, and however, it's a very key important aspect even in the space of data observability and quality. And I think that's what I was kind of saying even in the title of this observability without context is useless for business. And the context that I was
Right.
referring here is really that semantic layer and that is also one of the factors of DQLabs, how we are differentiating ourselves in terms of what we do and etc. I think
Hmm.
when we talk about quality and all those things, if I know this particular number is a phone number, my treatment of data quality checks for that is very different than what I would do for a social security number.
Exactly.
And that's a very simple common example, but I think it can get even more tricky as you go into different verticals. What they see in banking versus what they see in investment and how they interpret same things are very different. In the past, in the data governance space, it was done by business glossaries and taxonomies and things like that.
Hmm.
And then in the modern data stack, we also have like semantic stores like KPIs and metric stores and things of that sort. I think there is the whole notion of having a semantic layer at the metadata level and tagging to some of those taxonomies and terms, business terms, which allows you to understand and automatically discover, hey, this data is a phone number, this data is a social security number, this is a bank account number, this is a credit
Right.
card number, things like that. And I think that's what we need, apart from infusing some of the capabilities of observability and quality. I mean, now if you think combining those three things is very powerful, because you're not just like blindly doing observability or blindly doing
Hmm.
quality checks, but you are doing measurements, you are observing with a purpose, and that purpose is defined based on the semantic layer. And that's kind of like this all three great capabilities combined into one, which makes it even more powerful than doing it one or the other. And that's what DQLabs is all about too.
Okay. Raj, this is something I've heard for the first time. Obviously, I've learned it for the first time, which is very interesting to me. So thanks for sharing. And I'm pretty sure the audience out there also learned a thing or so. Also, we have Dave Borsky joining us from Sunnyvale. Let's see what he's asking. Dave is asking about what are some of the popular tools for data observability, and you can totally be biased about it, Raj.
I would just say DQLabs. However,
DQLabs.
yeah, I mean, like here, I think there's lots of tools out there in the market. I think the main aspect of that is you need to identify what is right for you. Because just because it's popular or just because it's not popular doesn't mean one or the other thing. I think
Right.
what I have known as a on the buyer side as well as on the seller side is it needs to add value to what you're doing. And
Right.
the way I connect is like you need to understand your business. You need to
Hmm.
understand your data teams, what they are doing, and you also need to relate to is this particular vendor willing to work with you or the tool vendor in terms of what? Because I think the needs is going to change The
Right.
demands is always going to be a moving piece. So it's not a point in time evaluation, which even though the buying is, you have to take a little bit of a longer strategic vision and then see how you can align with the person or the tool you're buying with. So obviously, I would like to say it's all DQLabs, but I don't think there is merit in it in that way when you look into a bigger, larger ecosystem. I think so. Taking the time to understand whom you're buying and the toolset capabilities of how they are thinking from a longer roadmap is very more key critical capability is what I would say.
Okay, that's a pretty good answer there, Raj. Thanks for that. And for those who are obviously interested to learn more about the modern data quality platform, DQLabs, what I've done is shared a link in the chat so you can actually go visit. There are a lot of resources that DQLabs has, so you can always go and check them out. It's pretty educational and you can learn a few things there. Okay, all right. So, time for us to actually take another quick question, a very interesting one from LinkedIn. Surendra is asking, how does data observability fit into the larger landscape of data management and governance?
I think so. I think you want to combine data observability and quality in itself, and not just observability, because I think observability is this way of automated process of observing to find unknown issues and things of sort.
Right.
Uh, and but there is also that other aspect of dimension that I was kind of talking in terms of this quality to know and manage and measure business quality checks and things like that. So when people say observability or quality without converging those three things of even including the semantic layer, I think those all three needs to be infused and converged into one is how I see it. But I think the
Wow.
question in terms of how it fits in the larger landscape of management and governance is around quality stewardship, the measurements of issues from data reliability aspect of it, the measurement of data in terms of business validations and things, and then providing that visibility even at the leadership in terms of KPIs and term levels checks and standards and enforcement. So that's how I see some of these areas where it fits into data management and governance as a stack. I think still there is a lot of innovation that's happening in this space, which is quite exciting. The whole data management space is coming into a like a 2.03, 3.0 version of it, and it's very logical because if you see the last 2 decades in the data space, we have grown in terms of the amount of data. We are creating lots of tool to supply those speed and performance and access and it's time that we look into data management. And now also even in the space of AI, again, data
Right.
becomes much more critical because you need to have good data for it, bad data, garbage in, garbage out. And
Right.
in order to measure and observe, you need those larger strategy and vision of that whole landscape in data management and governance. So that's how we see it.
Okay, pretty interesting. Thanks for sharing those. Quick one, obviously I'm shifting gears a bit here in terms of also talking a little about data teams because a lot of things, when data teams go out there and identify that they need data, observability tool to just get the right quality of data or have the right reliability. It also depends on data teams. My next question is something around what is the ideal composition of a data teams in terms of roles and skill sets to go out and do data observability. Anything that you can share, and I'm sure on ground level you might have seen so many different ways and so many different teams and skill sets as well.
Yeah, I think it's if you look into more of this organization of team, I think one of the question is the type of team you want, whether to centralize or decentralize. I mean, you are living in a era of a lot of this data as a product, data product, the data mesh concepts and things like that
Yeah,
that's emerging. And then on the other side, you're also having things like data contracts, SLAs for data with the data as a
exactly.
product view. So I think my view of that is again, it goes back to the size of the company. When
Mm.
you are smaller, it's much more easy to. I mean, traditionally we have been trying to do it more centralized,
Right,
but I think the modern way of thinking is when you are small, it makes sense to be centralized because the
right,
smaller centralized team can uh, lean and deal with any of the needs coming from different personas. But as you scale bigger, you have to decentralize in some ways, but also have a little bit of a centralized layer for some governance and
mm,
things that you may need to dictate. So the decentralized layer is where the data product, data as a product view, data mesh concepts comes in, where each of these domains can be viewed as its own product, and then they can have the set of controls within that. The centralized layer in a data as a product view and a decentralized hierarchy of sort is where I would say like there are certain things in a business which is very vital,
yeah,
and KPIs, business terms. Like for example, a product name, you cannot just go and change in different places, or even like an account number is an account number
exactly.
that needs to be used consistently and standardized in all different decentralized groups, irrespective of what they do as a domain. So that layer of centralization needs to be there and enforced to the standardization and governance aspect of it. And then you have this decentralized teams working for each of their data as a product, and their
Right.
views of what they are the SMEs of that. And that's kind of how I see. And the more critical layer, which is usually forgotten, is the interaction between the business and the engineering world to have some SLEs, and contracts. Because I think if you don't have that, then it just kind of like doesn't serve the purpose of better business outcomes. So those are the three
Exactly.
important aspects of what I would say.
Yeah, I think those are great aspects that you've mentioned, and definitely helps a lot for us to understand also the a bit where the data teams kind of comes in. That also brings me to another important question, Raj, which is about some of the challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges faced by data engineers in the modern tech landscape, and how do they overcome that?
I think there is a view that observability solves for everything, which is
Yeah.
not true. And I hate to break the hearts of a lot of people, but the reality is like observability is a great capability, but then also does not necessarily conquer everything. And I
Mm.
cannot I cannot talk about a little bit about this business quality checks, the semantic layer. These are other areas that needs to be tightly coupled as a tool together,
Right.
right? So if you start doing just observability, you get certain amount of merit to it, but it doesn't
Mm.
necessarily give you the context, necessarily give you the aspects of business quality checks, or even from a business standpoint to understand, yeah, the data is reliable. Yes, the data is there for us to use in reporting and analytics, but is it fit for purpose? Goes a little bit more into deeper column level checks and things like that, which the business necessarily needs. So that's one of the common challenges I have seen, like lots of companies adopting it and then say like, okay, yeah, this is more solves around reliability aspect of it, but then there is this other piece of like, okay, is this fit for purpose? How do we know the data that is reliable is also good for what we are trying to do from a data science modeling?
Mm.
And it's left out with those challenges of sorts. So my suggestion is that for any organization or any user who is looking into these areas, to have a little bit of a consolidated strategy where observability and the best practices of quality stewardship along with semantic layer integration happen seamlessly,
Right.
and think in that way versus just one or the other.
Yeah. No, I think definitely it all makes a lot of sense, and good, honest answer there, Raj. So, obviously it breaks a lot of myths as well, but at the same time also gives us an understanding of how data observability can help you to get to the next level. All right, we'll take another quick question here from Sanjeev. Is there any customer success story for DQ Labs and how tool helped in improve the data quality and data observability of the customer? Interesting.
We have lots of enterprise customers and using it, and as well as smaller modern data teams. I think some of the customer stories that I'm quite fond of is directly relates to business better outcomes. So, for example, this one larger enterprise in the manufacturing space has dealt with lots of problem in terms of process metrics, meaning like this is a environment. This is an organization that is involved in environmental aspect of it, and they move
Right.
lots of goods from one place to another place, and then they also want to build a overall nationwide data analytics model to kind of measure and define operational routing planning. In that space, the challenge they had is data was coming in from different places. Some are manual data, some are more automated, some are coming from third party systems. And when you have this large amount of inorganic data, it was very hard for them to scale and measure and also observe from an data quality and observability principles. And that's where DQLabs was able to automate the whole process seamlessly, irrespective of what type of data it is, irrespective whether it's cloud or hybrid and etc. And because of that, what they achieved is 10x speed in terms of
Hmm.
operational efficiencies. And they're also able to like automate the whole process. So no manual checks. So reduction in terms of the human workforce in terms of the efforts to manage this whole process also become very cost saving too. So that's a good. And there is lots of case studies out there in the website as well, DQLabs.ai. If you don't know, then you can also reach out to me as well directly, and I'm happy to share more details in terms of the customer names and other aspects of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that makes sense. Good question there, Sanjeev. In great testimonials from amazing enterprise companies out there, Raj. So, well done to DQ Labs on that. Another quick question here from Dave is: it's one challenge to observe data, but what are the challenges in interpreting the data? Very interesting.
Yeah, very very good. I think so. That's where the measurement comes in. I think I go by these three terms: observe, measure, discover. Right.
Hmm.
So you can put it in any order depending upon what it is. I think the observe is the observability, of course. The measure is the one which kind of talks to the challenges in interpreting the data. Right. The challenges in interpreting data is a challenge in itself because it's in the eyes of the beholder. So, for example, when you're
Right.
talking to a data science person today, they may be building a propensity model, which may need a specific type of data with its own characteristics and etc. While you talk to a data analyst, their view of the data that they need for their reporting is very different. And if you talk to a leader who is using KPIs for making some organization decisions, their need for data is very different. And I think the persona actually dictates some of the interpretation of the data and the business needs of it, and then along with the outcome, and that becomes it more challenging. So that's why we have this component of measure apart from observe, right? So it's not the challenge of observe data, it's
Hmm.
observe can be used in only in certain places, and beyond that you need to start measuring. That's why I said like you need to observe, measure, discover meaning the semantic layer integration. And if you have those three capabilities, depending upon the size of the team, depending upon what makes sense to start from where you are in terms of crawl, walk, run, is all the best practices to do. But I think you need all of those three capabilities of measuring, observing, and then also this discovering in terms of semantic layer is needed to interpret and solve all this business expectations of the data from a quality check standpoint.
Exactly. I think that definitely answers for Dave there. So thanks for that. Raj, another quick question, and that is one of my favorite questions. To be honest, like I always make sure I'm asking all the CEOs, leaders, founders who come on the show and who are a part of the modern data stack as well. So, what do you think about modern data stack, and what's an ideal modern data stack according to you? Which I know is difficult to say, but still would love to learn more about that.
I mean, I think the modern data stack is, as I was kind of talking earlier, it's any stack that brings in and addresses problems around speed, performance, and accessibility. Right. I think I have seen lots of different tools which are good in different areas. So it's very hard to pick one, and I would rather be not bold and not pick one, given I'm also
Mhm.
integrating with all these tool sets and ecosystem in the stack. But I think, again, I think it really comes down to you as an organization in terms of what you want. I've seen some places where lots of merits. I have seen companies picking up Databricks, and in other places they have picked Snowflake, and in some places I've seen both of them using both. Same thing in terms of the engineering layer, data engineering layer, in terms of like pipelines. There is lots of affinities, and there is lots of religious motivations and emotions around that, the stack too. I think for me, I think what really drives is deciding it from a point of where you are at a business, and see if that makes sense for whatever your team is. I think most of the time people discount the learning aspect of it,
Hmm.
and the alignment to the organization's culture, I think, which is very, very important. For example, like if you cannot take a bunch of SQL developers and suddenly expect them to write Python. That's not happening. So you may want to
Exactly.
think in terms of tools, and vice versa. If their engineers are more well versed in Python and things like that, you cannot make them suddenly overnight a SQL developer. So you need to see what your people are and your skill sets, and then see how you can go from where you are into jumping and adopting into this modern data stack, and then the skill sets that you can leverage from where they are, in a way that it's very transitional without having a complete turnaround.
Yeah, no, I think that is a very good point there. So thanks for that, Raj. Before I know I'm sensitive time. I know you are visiting a conference. So just wanted to also quickly learn a little about how do you see the future of data observability, and uh, where what's your plan with DQLabs in the next 2 to 3 years?
I think I see the convergence of observability, quality, semantic layer all happening. And as I was kind of pointing out, each has its own layer of merit to it. Like, for
Yeah.
example, in specific observability, I can see that it kind of goes into FinOps, an area that is also developing in terms of cost. And then it can also be applied to usage, apart from checking in terms of reliability, right? So it kind of expands into that. And in the same way, I can also see how that concept is also merged with the concept of data quality best practices in terms of business
Hmm.
quality. That is a convergence that is will happen. I mean, you want to make sure data is available and reliable, and then two, it's fit for purpose. So that's where the convergence comes in, and then also
Okay.
this integration of semantic layer. So I see there's three different concepts which are very critical in terms of observability, data quality, and data discovery from a semantic layer. All three combined together is a convergence that I see and bet on that will happen in the space of data observability.
Perfect. I think that's a good detail about the future and where it's moving, and also about EQ Labs. So before we go out and announce, just a quick reminder for the folks that you can type in hashtag DQ Labs. I already see a few folks joining in, and almost 11 entries that I see here, and 20 entries from the newsletter. So we have good 40 plus people, I think, joining us, 11 or 20, and YouTube, LinkedIn. somewhere around 40, 42 people. So what we'll be doing is a quick raffle before we end the show. But one last question here for Raj. Raj, if folks want to learn more about data observability, about data quality, where can they reach out? And also, are you at Gartner right now? So if they are around,
Yeah.
they can meet you as well.
Yeah, I'm at the Gartner Data Analytics Conference here in Orlando. So I'm here for the day. Or, I mean, I've been there for the last couple of days, and then I'll be here today too. So, of course, if you're there, say come and say hi. You can also
Amazing.
reach out in email, Raj at DQLabs.ai. You can also find me in LinkedIn. Raj Joseph was a tag, and then you should be able to find me, Raj DQLabs. You will not miss it. So yeah, don't hesitate. Any questions are welcome, and happy to share my insight on where we are and what we are doing, as well as my opinions, like what we shared here, Ravit.
Okay, that's amazing, Raj. I think one another one quick question actually that I wanted to ask you was around the challenges that you currently see. Uh, you know, like the common people facing in terms of understanding the data observability, because that was one question that I've seen like multiple times asked in the by the folks as well. So, what are these common problems? And then we can, obviously wrap up, but can't wait to again do a session. So,
I
yeah.
think one of the common problems I see is you get a lot of these alerts, and then it becomes overwhelming. I mean, like when
Hmm.
you have like larger enterprises with lots of data across hybrid stack, some on-premises, some cloud, some in kind of like API-based applications. There is some limitation that comes along with it, but also at the same time, the amount of automation also
Right.
necessarily not turn into value because you are kind of observing everything and then more alerts, more things to work, and now that becomes more of a manual churn and things like that. And I think that's one of the problems I have seen. I think this is where you need to be careful how you treat observability without semantic. I was kind of talking about this observability without context is useless because you cannot just take a capability and a feature and then apply it across everything and then expect magically to work because that's not how business work and that's not how organizations scale. So
Hmm.
having the context and then applying it back with these capabilities is much more powerful. And so I always have been an advocate of understanding what you're doing and using semantic layer as a way to infuse some of these concepts back in what you're doing from an observer or a measure. And then making that three things observe, measure, discover together is a very good value and the way to deal with some of these problems that you may see in terms of alert fatigues and etc.
Okay. And are you also, Raj, coming up with something around the lines where you have a white paper and an article that people can actually look at in terms of understanding the integration of the semantic layer and
Yeah.
with data observability and all of those things as well?
Yeah, I think we read a lot of things around that. I mean, right now we have done around the modern data quality recursive rethink is one white paper that we have published,
Hmm.
especially in the world of AI, ML business use cases. And then we also are coming up with a white paper on the convergence of data quality and observability, which is another topic in itself. Talks about some of the semantic layers and different personas that kind of look into that. And we are also coming up with a whole definition of what is modern data quality, right? I mean, we
Oh,
have
wow.
modern data stack, but what is modern data quality really? And also kind of like talk about all these myths of that's out there. Like, this is this the one which is going to solve everything in the way we are seeing, and etc. Some of these myths of things being very looking from a more a user focused and a practitioner focused, and then answering and then doing some of these white papers without any bias to vendors or technologies or platforms is another thing that we are coming up with too.
Okay, pretty interesting. And one final question for sure is how do you see, how do you differentiate DQ Labs from others in the space, and what's like the features that are the differentiating factors?
Yeah, I say the industry is kind of split into multiple categories. One, you see lots of legacy players doing legacy
Right.
things, which is always there in any environment. Then you have some new age players, which is very focused on data reliability or observability as a concept, and they do that. And
Hmm.
then I see some folks who are doing like more business quality checks without some of this other concept of observability still. So I think the way I see and how we differentiate in DQ Labs is I think this concept of observe, measure, discover, which is kind of really infusing the capabilities of observability, business quality, and then also the semantic layer integration seamlessly. So we naturally fit into any ecosystem which has any of this data stack, including some of the governance tool sets, either in catalog or metadata management and things like that. And we tightly integrate with those things, not in terms of pushing just metrics or alerts, but in terms of taking some of those information from what they have already acquired, and then also putting these capabilities in use immediately with a context is where we are differentiating. And that's why we have define ourselves as in the space of modern data quality, not to confuse any people, but in terms of this notion of that you need all these three capabilities of business quality checks. You also need this data observability from a reliability standpoint, and also the semantic layer to understand the context. And combining these capabilities is how we differentiate everyone else from this space of where we are.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Thanks for that, Raj. Quickly bringing on our entries here and doing the quick raffle here. Let's see who the winner is. Oh, sorry. And here we bring up the winner. It's Ravina Ostwal. We had almost 42 entries. Thanks for participating, everyone. Such interesting insights, Raj. I can't wait to do a 2.0 session for sure because you've shared about data quality. We've spoken about data teams. We've spoken about modern data stack, data observability, about DQ labs, about the data engineering bit as well. So thanks for covering a good ground here today on the Ravit Show. Can't wait to learn more about what DQLabs is coming up in the near future, and definitely once you have the white papers live and those which are live as well, I can share the links with the folks,
Yeah.
or we can also reach out to you directly if they have any questions. So thanks again, Raj, and thank you everyone for joining us today on the Ravit Show.
Thanks for having me here, Ravit. And definitely we should do a 2.0 where we can show the case the product, because I think a lot of things adds value when you actually see it versus concepts and things. So again, thanks for having, and thanks for asking all these questions from your community and fans too. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thanks, Raj.